Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Dev. Today we're celebrating the end of 2018 with a bang. That's right, today we're building a special New Year's Eve themed project featuring fire, fireworks, and explosions. Indeed, we're ending the year on yet another of my weird ideas. So let's not waste any more time and get to the coding. For this episode, I'm doing things a little different, as I'll be describing what I'm doing without explaining what the end goal is actually meant to be. Mostly because I couldn't figure out a great way to summarize exactly what or why. Anyway, I will say this project features very few sprites and a lot of drawings of shapes. Starting with our player, who is but a lonely gray square for now. I then created the player's weapon, a ball. Again, no sprites, just a shape. Now that our ball exists, it needed to orbit the player, which I was able to accomplish using lengthers. So far so good. Also shoutouts to that sky background, which once again was doodled in GameMaker in like 5 minutes. I then clamped the ball's speed and set up a temporary button check. When spacebar is pressed, it would send the ball orbiting in the opposite direction at max speed, and if the speed is greater than 0, slowly decrease the speed unless spacebar is pressed again. Once again, so far so good. Now, we needed to light that ball on fire. I created a quote-unquote puff object that would be multi-purpose, but for now all we needed it to do was to produce a flame effect. Again, just using shapes, I had the puff object draw a circle which would then shrink over time, eventually disappearing. To give it a bit of unexpectedness like a flame's flicker, I randomized its movements a bit. Then going back to the ball, I had the ball create a puff object every step with a random chance of red, orange, or yellow colored puffs. The end result was a very simple and passable fire effect. I then randomized the variables to diversify the flames a bit. And finally, I drew a line from the player to the ball. Now looking at this, if you guessed the flaming tether ball, you'd be correct. Or you cheated and skipped ahead. Either way, that's exactly what we were going for, and I think we achieved our goal. Assuming that the string was more of a pipe, because I realized having the line actually tether would have made this experience awful. Nonetheless, with our flaming tether ball done, it was time to move on to our enemies, the firework rockets. For now, I drew the rockets as red rockets, though they'll be varied in color later on. I then had them slowly head directly towards the player, and I had these Lightful Delights spawn just outside the edges of the level. Now that our rockets exist, they needed a bit more pizzazz, so I returned to the puff object to do just that. As I said, it's a multi-purpose object, so I gave the puff a second type, which would be used for smoke trails. The smoke trail not only shrunk at a slower rate, but it also slowly faded away as well. Going back to the enemy, I then spawned these smoky puffs either in a gray or silver color at a lower opacity. And after some tweaking, we had some nice smoky trail effects for our angry little red rockets just waiting to explode. And speaking of explode, that's exactly what I did next. I gave the enemies an ignited state and checked its collision against not only the flame embers, but also the ball itself, just to make things a little bit more fair. When ignited, the enemy ceases moving towards the player and instead heads upwards, eventually exploding into tiny pretty embers. Tiny pretty embers that we made, which again are small circles drawn at different sizes. After creating the embers, I went back to the enemy code and used a simple loop to spawn flower-like explosions. Flower-like explosions which are now colored whatever color the enemy spawns as. So red rockets spawn red embers, blue spawn blue, and so forth. Now the explosions were cute, but they lacked punch. We needed punch. So I created an actual explosion, again out of drawn circles, similar to those in our Vlambeer prototype clone project. And not only did I spawn in an explosion, but that explosion also brought with it a little screen shake. So now when an enemy is ignited, it explodes, literally, and it also produces tiny colored embers. Some random variable tweaking later, and we had our weird little New Year's project done. The player must hit the flaming tether ball by placing their cursor over the ball and hitting spacebar. Doing so gives the ball some momentum to swing, hopefully igniting any nearby firework rockets in the process. As long as the flame or the ball touches the rocket, they ignite, sending them upwards and popping in a beautiful explosion of screen shake and color. Now granted, it's not an actual game with a fail state, but I'd like to imagine with a bit more tweaking this could be an actual game with a fail state. Maybe some type of score attack game. But for now, it's just a zen experience about hot fiery balls and red rockets. And that's how we're closing out 2018 here on Let's Dev, folks. So remember that if you like this video or enjoy Let's Dev in general, be sure to hit that like button. If you aren't already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. And as always, be sure to leave your thoughts on this weird little project in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.